And I
This
am,
meeting is being recorded.
let's see, trying to pull up the person. All right. Is everyone able to see my screen?
Yes, looks good.
Okay, wonderful. Well, I'll start just by introducing myself, and then, of course, I will let Erica introduce herself. But my name is Orlando Harris, and we are with Truist. We are a part of the enterprise recruiting and programs team, focusing specifically on diversity recruiting. I've been with Truist for nearly 20 years and have thoroughly enjoyed my time with the company and definitely love opportunities like this to talk with. Um, it sounds like you all are career transitioners, and if we're able to offer any advice or tips to help, I'm always happy to do that. So thank you for allowing us to spend time with you this afternoon. Erica?
Hey everyone, I am Erica Camper. I am here in Atlanta, Georgia. I've been with Truist for almost 9 years. I am Heritage SunTrust. I've enjoyed the merger between SunTrust and BB&T. It has been quite a ride, but I'm still here. I love everything that it has to offer and more. My role as Orlando said, that we are on the enterprise recruiting and programs team. Our role is to focus on diversity. So, as diversity, equity, and inclusion recruiting consultants, we have various segments within the DEI space that we focus on, as well as partnerships within the financial organization itself. My role primarily is to partner with our mortgage and retail banking side, but I also have a responsibility to our HSIs, our PWIs, HBCUs, anything that's school related, but focused in the alumni capacity, where I'm looking for individuals that have a minimum of 5 years of experience, but really I'm looking for 7+ years of experience. But I also take care of other responsibilities and roles across the footprint. But that's in a nutshell what I do, along with a whole lot of other stuff.
Okay, great. Well, Erica, do you want to start off by giving us just an overview of Truist and who we are?
So just to let you all know, a lot of people still don't know who Truist is. And as I was stating earlier, we are a merger of equals between BB&T and SunTrust. We came to fruition December of 2019. But collectively, between the two organizations, we have over 100 years of history with us. The organizations definitely are similar in culture, but with Truist, we have expanded that culture as well. And one of the things that we focus on is our purpose, mission, and values, and that we call that our PMV. We always kick that off because we want people to understand that we're really big on being one team, whether you are internally or externally. Once we partner with you, like Code the Dream, you are a part of our team, you're a part of our family. So we want to make sure that we embrace you and you embrace us as well. We're all about making sure we give back to the community. We have success across the board, and it does not matter where you sit or what job you have within Truist. Again, we're one team, and we want to make sure that we are meeting our clients' needs, our teammates' needs, and making sure that our stakeholders' needs are met as well. And then overall, no matter what you do with caring and having one team, you got to have that trust, and you got to have be happy. So that's one of the things I do love about Truist is because let me tell you, when we've gone through this pandemic, Truist has taken care of us, whether it's sending us little gifts in the mail, checking on us, sending out
Mhm.
gift cards. Now imagine an organization sending out gift cards to over 50,000 teammates. That's huge. Now the gift cards were $100, but that's a big amount for us individually, as well as sending out books, just checking on our health, our physical health, our mental health, our spiritual health. I mean, that's really big. So, I mean, and
Mhm.
there's so much that I can tell you about Truist, but I just want to tell you that all of that embodies our purpose, mission, and values, along with other areas. And I hope that once we complete our connection today that you do consider Truist for future career opportunities.
Well, thank you, Erica. And definitely we want this workshop to be engaging. There will be times when we will definitely ask you all for input, and we can interact with each other. So, and if you have questions along the way, please feel free to ask. You don't necessarily have to hold them to the end. So we're going to go ahead and move into the presentation. So here's our first opportunity for some interaction. What's the purpose of your resume and one of the purposes of LinkedIn?
And I would just like to share that for everyone in this group is on the kind of job seeking path. But people are at all different stages. So some folks are like actively interviewing and have, really worked on their resume and LinkedIn. Other folks are, just getting started in the process. So I think there's definitely some folks who have been working on that LinkedIn and that resume.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Awesome. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that, Lori. But just in general, there are no, right or wrong answers. Just, this will kind of help us to gauge and how to move forward throughout the rest of the presentation. But just, what do you think the purpose of your resume, what is it for, or just having a LinkedIn profile?
I see sell myself as professional to the company, branding to employers. Those are definitely some of the opportunities.
Oh.
Are you posing that question to us?
Yes. And I'm sorry, with this presentation, I can't see anyone. I can only see the presentation. I'm not sure if I've got the setting right or not.
I'm not sure if you have the option up in your right-hand corner where it says view. You can choose standard or side-by-side gallery. And hopefully then that will enable you to see people's faces. Do you have that option?
Right.
No, it doesn't seem to give me that.
It might be a little bit different since you are the presenter.
Yeah, so I only see that I have the option to stop sharing or to hide it, but not to do anything else. So,
all right, well,
but
we'll
that's
have to call people out for you then if needed.
Yes, okay.
Okay, I can try. I think, and I'll use a mail in reference to this. I think a resume is similar to a suit and tie. It's the outer appearance of what an individual looks like. And I think in reference to the resume, it's the outer experiences of an individual. And with the LinkedIn, I think it's the overcoat over the suit. It's more expanded than the resume itself.
Okay, well, that's an interesting analogy. I never quite thought about it that way. Huh. Okay, great. Well, thank you for sharing that. Anyone else?
It's just a way to kind of make a first impression on employers, I guess.
Okay, great. Absolutely. Yes, it's a way, to market yourself, to connect and network with other people. And hopefully, definitely if you're on the path to looking for another career opportunity, it's a way to introduce yourself to employers and hopefully land that interview that will lead you to your next position. So, all right. But just in general, when it comes to, like what is a resume, it's, again, it's a marketing tool. It's an element of your personal brand. It's a way to highlight your skills, your competencies, your professional accomplishments, your career story, and, some things to consider. As Lori shared, a number of you are at various stages when it comes to resume writing. But, things to think about are really, who are you writing to? Who are you, creating the resume for? And what do you think they need to know about you? And how can you bring value to that company into that position. Erica, is there anything that you want to add?
No, you nailed it, Orlando.
Okay. Now, here's another question for you all. How long do you all think that recruiters spend on screening a resume?
3 to 10 seconds.
Okay, that's a good window. Anyone else?
Orlando, yeah, Orlando, we've got a lot of 30 seconds. We've got 15 seconds, 30 seconds,
Okay,
20 minutes per resume. We got a lot of seconds there. A lot of seconds.
okay, all right. 6 seconds
Oh,
is the
wow.
average time that a recruiter will spend on looking at a resume. And typically, what we're looking for, as you can see this example, there are some hot spots. We're typically looking for where a person has worked, how long they've worked there, what their current or what some of their roles have been in the past, and how with their skills and experience, what they share, how that's relevant to the need or the opening that we have. So we look at education, their technical skills, just making sure that that person meets the minimum. And ideally, the preferred qualifications for that position or for that opening. So 6 seconds is really the time that you have to make an impression and to stand out from everyone else that could be applying for that same role. All right. Well, next we're going to get into talking about the resume formatting and optional headings for your resume. Um, so, you know, generally we recommend that your resume not be any longer than 2 pages. Um, now, as you continue to advance in your career, you know, and depending on the type of resume that you may be creating, it may be a little bit longer than that, especially if you're at a point in your career where you have maybe written some articles, or you have written books or things of that nature, and not everything is going to fit onto just 2 pages. But on average, you're applying for a job, 1 to 2 pages should be sufficient. Um, Also, you want to make sure that you're mindful of the amount of white space you're showing on the page. You want to make sure that not everything is jumbled together. It's, you know, your everything fits within, the margins of a half inch to an inch. And you're typically using a font size of 11 to 12. Because you don't want it to be too small, and the recruiter and or the hiring manager, they're having to use a magnifying glass or they're having to enlarge the screen to read it. But then again, you don't want it to be so large that it's jumping off the page at them too. Erica, anything that you would like to
I
share?
agree with everything you said. And also, just to let you all know, the reason why, well, one of the reasons why it takes us on average about 6 seconds to look at a resume is because here, let me just use Truist for an example. Here we can, on the low side or average side, we may have 25 openings per recruiter. Sometimes it can be as high as 50. It depends on what's taking place. So when we have to go through, let's say, 25 openings, we may have on average about 70 to 80 people to look at. We're looking for specific things really quickly in order to determine if you meet the qualifications. After we've spoken to the hiring manager and understand the needs of that job and also of the business itself, we need to find someone immediately. So that's why the formatting of your resume is super important in order for us to identify, do you meet that role? Imagine sitting there and looking at, let's say, trying to go through 70 resumes on one position, and you're spending like at least 5 minutes. We would never get through everyone's resume, let alone getting through the other jobs that we have available. So then we don't provide great customer service to those that are applying, those to our hiring manager, but also to ourselves because we're using too much time in an area where we can be, making sure that we maximize as much of our time to send candidates over to the hiring managers to get you in front of them, to get you in front of those managers as quickly as possible. So when we look at the resume formatting, that's why we're looking at, some of the, not only the formatting, such as the way that, those words jump out at us in terms of the font size, the reverse chronological order, but also the additional headings. Like for us, like as software engineers and other fields, we're looking, are you a software engineer if that's the job that you're applying for? We're looking for specific programs that you have utilized. We want those things to stand out. Sometimes we do a search, really quickly through those resumes to find you, to determine if you qualify. And then, of course, maybe out of 70 resumes, only 12 meet the qualifications. You'll be surprised that those that apply, it could be someone who is a cashier that will apply to a senior manager role. And so we have to remove them from, disqualify them from all of those roles. And then out of the 12, the manager may say, hey, I just want the top 3. So out of those 3, what in that resume makes us say, okay, what makes this person stand out over the next person? And so that's why it's so important for you to be very clear and concise in who you're communicating to via that resume, because that resume speaks for you before you even get in front of the hiring manager.
Yeah. Orlando and Erica, we've got a couple questions in the chat. One is more around that white space and probably the chronological order of resumes. One question we got is, what's the impression if you see a huge gap between experience and the jobs, and kind of, how does that relate in looking at resumes? And then the other one is, can you share the deck after the call?
Just to clarify, is it a huge gap in terms of the space on the resume or a huge gap in terms of employment?
It says we got experience and jobs. So I'm saying I think it's
I think employment. But
employment. Yeah.
So if it's employment, it depends on the job. So let's say, for example, technology, and Orlando, correct me if I'm wrong. We want people who are as current in their career with technology as possible, because things are always changing, right? So
Correct.
If there's a gap, it depends on where you land amongst the others that have applied. So if your skills stand out amongst the rest, you may still be considered. But let's say if your skills are not as strong, based upon what is written on the resume, we may not consider you immediately, only because we have people that are currently in that role or in that space that is doing the functions that we're looking for. So it's really tricky. It really just, depends. A lot of times we still will call you and we want to understand what happened during that gap. And sometimes you can go ahead and put that in your resume to state, between this time frame and that time frame of what you were doing. But for the most part, we're looking for the most relevant experience as possible if it's, compared to the others. Think of it kind of like American Idol. Everyone's up there singing their heart out, but they're looking for the top, however many, I haven't watched it in a while, but the top people to be considered to move forward or to get that golden ticket. Or did I mix that up with another show? But, they're getting that ticket to move forward. It's the same thing with your resume. Your resume is that singing voice that's going to stand out. So if you may have all the greatest skills in the world, but if you don't convey it on your resume, you may not be seen amongst the others. Yeah. And then, Orlando, are we sharing the deck? Not sure if we're...
I think we can ask if we're able to share this deck, and if we're not, then perhaps we can share some of the highlights. Maybe we can put them in like a reference guide and share them with the group after today. I don't know if we're able to share this specific deck, but we can ask.
Thank you.
Are there any questions? Any additional questions?
I have a question. I'm not sure if you're going to get into it later, but just specifically because we're working with folks who will be applying for technical roles. Can you give us a sense of a little bit about that flow? Like, is there an initial computer screening first and then like a general hiring manager? And then does it get passed on to like a technical person? And what does that flow look like?
So I'll tell you that when we set up the jobs, there are pre-screen questions already set up. And those pre-screen questions will determine if you qualify for your resume to be seen on our side. So let's say, going back to the example of 70 resumes, those are just 70 resumes that are visible to us. There may be 130 resumes or 130 people that may have applied total, in total. However, they didn't pass the initial pre-screen questions that is set up with that job. Once your resume is seen, visible to the recruiter, and once we go through and review the resumes that will stand out to us to be presented, in our world, and this is not for all of our roles, but in our world, we'll send you through a video screen, which we call montage or modern hire. And so in that video screen, instead of speaking to one of us as a recruiter, you'll actually answer questions that are already pre-populated or populated by the recruiter for you to do the pre-screening via video. So it'll allow you to record yourself as many times as possible to get your answer or get your response correct. And then once that pre-screen is done, and your video is complete, it'll come back to us as the recruiters. And then we will take a look at that. Or our hiring managers will take a look at that, listen to your responses, and then we'll determine if you qualify for an actual interview. The video pre-screen is actually, I say it's a lot better because it gives you a chance to process the questions and then actually re-record yourself versus if we call you directly and we're asking you those questions, once you spit that answer out, that's your answer. That's what we're going with, right? Or we've already heard what you want to say. So we've already jotted down notes and preparing to determine if we're going to move you forward to the hiring manager or not. And then, of course, once you get to the hiring manager, it could be a single interview, it could be multiple interviews, or it could be panel interviews. It just really depends on the role that you're applying to. And the hiring process can take anywhere from 2 weeks to maybe 6 months. Again, it could be, I just want to be realistic. It can depend on the role that you're applying to. Anything, Alina, did I miss anything?
No, I agree with everything that you said. One thing I would like to add is when you are looking for a position and you're reviewing the job description, generally there are at least minimum requirements or required skills that are listed. And then you may also see preferred qualifications or preferred skills. One way to definitely save yourself some frustration and time is to make sure that when you're applying to a role, you want to make sure that you currently meet all of the minimum qualifications. If you meet some or none of the preferred, that's fine, but you definitely want to make sure that you meet the minimum, because if you don't meet all the minimum requirements, as a recruiter, we are not able to move you forward in the process. You have to meet the minimum, of what they're asking for as far as the position. So that can save you some time as well. And that can increase your chances of actually being selected and moving, forward in the process.
I have a follow-up question about that, and there's also a question in the chat.
Sure.
But maybe I'll ask my follow-up since it's directly related. Regarding meeting the minimum qualifications, what we hear often in the software industry is that there are many job announcements that actually list a greater level of years of experience than is actually required for the job, because so much depends on, the skill, not so much and your knowledge of that technical language, not so much the years of experience. Do you have any comment or thoughts about that?
So, I mean, I would say specifically, and definitely Erica, if you have anything to add, I know at Truist, whatever we're asking for in the minimum requirements, whether it's a combination of the minimum level of education, the years of experience, as well as the skill set. Like you have to have certain technical skills, or if you have to have leadership and managerial skills, leading a team, what have you, whatever is in that minimum, you have to meet that. So even now, the preferred is typically the preferred qualifications typically focus on, ideally, if the hiring manager had the chance to bring in, the person they absolutely want, they may list some additional qualifications that this person may have, whether that's like a master's degree or maybe some additional years of experience or some additional training or certifications. But the minimum really focuses on what this person needs to have to come and start working today to be successful in that role. That doesn't, require any additional training for them to perform the basic functions of the job. I hope that makes sense. Would you like to add anything, Erica?
No, you nailed it.
Okay.
Cedric has a question in the chat. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead. That's fine. And great questions. So
Cedric asks, how important is the attachment of a cover letter with the resume? And I'll add to that question, what if they don't ask for it? If they do ask for it, obviously include it. If they don't ask for it, should you still?
Sure. So my response generally to that is, so as a recruiter, we can look at your resume and say, hey, Cedric has great experience in this area and that area, and I think he would be a perfect match for X job. But you may be at a point in your career where you're wanting to advance to another role, or maybe you've been in a position where you have been an individual contributor and now you're ready to take more of a leadership or a management level role. You're wanting to step up. A cover letter is your opportunity to give more insight to the recruiter and or the hiring manager as to where you want to go next in your career. It's just an opportunity, and it's a great way for you to share a little bit more that maybe than what you have put in your resume as to why you were qualified for that position. So, while a cover letter isn't required, it may be optional. I think it's a great tool for you to use to, help yourself shine a little bit more. Erica, would you say anything different?
No, you nailed it, Orlando. It honestly, the cover letter is the marketing tool for you. It allows you to brag about yourself and the skills that you have. You're trying to condense, I don't know, maybe 15, 20 years of experience into 1 to 2 pages. How easy is that, right? So that cover letter is going to give you an opportunity to expand upon that of what you may not be able to fit inside that resume. It may also give you an opportunity to share some additional skills, as Orlando was saying, that you want to share with the hiring manager. But overall, it's the way for you to market yourself. Think of Instagram, probably Instagram, where you're looking at a picture and that person determines whether they want to like the picture or not. That cover letter is we have to read it, but it allows us to learn a little bit more about you, determine if we're going to, it'll help us when we're looking at the resume and determine if we're going to move forward or
not. There's a follow-up question in the chat also from Adriana. Do we need to adjust our cover letters in order to show that we know the company that we're applying for? Or does it not matter because the most important is that we have the technical skills?
So I would say it depends on the role. I would say not really so much that you know the company itself. You may want to have maybe 1 or 2 lines about the company, but really that cover letter is about you. we want to learn more about you of what you cannot put into the resume. So if there are areas that you shine in within your technical skills, put that in the cover letter. Expand upon what you could not expand upon in the resume, so that we learn more about your skills in that cover letter. But no, I don't. Me personally, as a recruiter, those cover letters, again, I'm skimming through it probably in 4 seconds or 3 seconds. I'm looking for keywords, what stands out to me, and then I utilize that in partnership with your resume to see what other skills or attributes you can provide to the company and to the position, and then we go from there.
Yep, I would agree. All right. Great questions, you all. Well, if there are no further questions at this point, um, we would like to also touch on the second section of this slide where we have optional headings. Um, these are just some examples of headings that you can use on your resume to highlight your skills and experience. One thing I definitely would emphasize is whatever, say, for example, you have created a section where you're highlighting your leadership experience, you definitely, whatever you put on your resume, and you use as the heading, you want to make sure that the content supports that. So yeah, but these are just some examples of various sections on your resume that you can create and share what you've done, your demonstrated experience and skills.
And
Erica,
Lori,
would you
I
like
just
to?
want to mention
Okay.
what you mentioned in the chat is totally, absolutely correct as well. Definitely focus on those attributes to show your value of what you can bring to the company and how you can, accomplish our mission, such as we just showed you earlier, the MPV, the mission, purpose, and values. You may want to highlight a few of those things, attribute or areas of our MPV into your cover letter. But honestly, that is an opportunity for you to really hone in more of your overall of what you've done. Let us know anything additional that you want the recruiters or the hiring managers to know about yourselves.
Yeah, and I would add to that something to keep in mind for this group for tomorrow. What we're doing is that add value part. You're your biggest advocate, and you know exactly what you've done. Be your biggest cheerleader, and don't fear or like don't be shy when it comes to bragging about yourself, because no one else is going to do it for you. So I would tell you that's the best thing to say, and then ultimately just speak the language of the company and say, this is what I'm going to bring to the table, and this is what I'm going to do for you. And going back to what Eric and Orlando were saying, that concise approach, because if you got 4 seconds to say, I'm going to be able to accomplish this if you hire me, it's not even an elevator speech. It's being able to condense it down to saying, I'm going to do it. I've got the skills. And to Erica and Orlando's point, they know what they're looking for. It's just a matter of being your biggest cheerleader. And that's we ultimately hold ourselves back from doing that. Don't be humble when it comes to bragging about
Yes.
yourself.
And then just let me add to that really quickly as well. When you're doing your resumes, you may have 2 to 4 resumes because you want to have your general resume, and then you want to have resumes that are going to tailor to each area that you are great at. But also, you'll have resumes that are going to align with the job. So if that job says that they need someone with 5 years of Scrum, being a Scrum master, that resume should speak to that. If that job says that they are looking for a specific type of software engineer, your resume should speak specifically to that software engineer. I always tell individuals, take a look at the job description, pull out those keywords. The thing that you're going to look at primarily are the qualifications, not the preferred qualifications, but the minimum qualifications. Make sure that your resume has those keywords, because guess what? We as recruiters, we're looking for those keywords. We're not even so much looking at the job description right away. We want to know, do you even meet the minimum qualifications? So make sure those keywords are in there. And then if you have the skills or the education that fall in the preferred skills, put that in your resume because we want to see that. When you put that, you may not totally meet what we need, but if we see those keywords within those 6 seconds, we're like, okay, let me pull them out of the 70 and they'll be part of the 12 that probably have met the qualifications that we're looking for. And then from there, we're breaking it down further to say, okay, these will be the top 3 or the top 5 that we're going to present to the hiring or that we're going to call to phone screen. And then if they qualify out of those top 5, the top 3 will then go to the hiring manager. So make sure your resume is aligned to the job itself. And no one will know that you have more than one resume. The only way that they'll know is if you tell them, right? But make sure that that job aligns to what that specific role is.
Yep, absolutely. All right, great. Great. Well, next we're going to move forward into talking a little bit more about, what to include, especially around like your education. So you definitely want to list your most recent educational accomplishment first. So you would list that. You definitely want to include, the school, the degree, and or the major or minor, whether you have graduated or your expected graduation date. If you graduated with honors, or if there were any awards, or if you were the recipient of a scholarship, you participated in any particular school activities, organizations, or related coursework and projects to what the job requirements have stated, include that. And also, you can list your GPA. If, of course, if you have earned your degree, you want to be sure to include the college or university from which the degree was earned. If you attended college, but no degree was earned or has been earned as of yet, you may want to include the number of credit hours and related coursework that you have completed. And we have some examples of how you can do that here on the screen. And I know that we're running just a little behind, so we're going to try to catch up because we have just a few minutes left. But are there any questions regarding how to list your education on your resume?
Great question from Alton. What do you recommend if your formal school experience isn't relative to the job you're applying for? So we see that a lot, especially with the software developers who've maybe gone through a boot camp or Code the Dream training, for example. You may or may not have a college degree in a completely different field. What's your recommendation there?
Generally, I would advise, like, if you've completed, whether it's like a Bachelor of Science or a Bachelor of Arts from, a college or a university, and you actually graduated, you completed that coursework, I would still list it. I think it's an accomplishment, I wouldn't necessarily hide that. Erica, would you say anything different?
I agree, Orlando. I would definitely still list it. I'll tell you that a lot of employers, especially with, here with Truist, we're not just looking at what you currently are doing. We're looking at all of your skills because you bring something different to the table. So if you are changing careers and now you're a software engineer, but previously you were an accountant, guess what? You might, have a skill set and a different point of view to bring to Truist and to the team that others don't, may not look at that matter or that subject in the same way. So please put your skills on there because we want to not just hire you based upon what you currently know, but what you can bring to the company as a whole. And then, of course, your job that you land with Truist or whomever is not your final destination. So those skill sets will carry you to your next career, your next job opportunity within Truist. You're just building on to your portfolio of who you are.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. All right. very quickly, when it comes to your experience, you definitely want to be consistent with the format. And what we mean by that is the punctuation throughout your resume, your word tense, spacing, alignment. You want to make sure that the format looks very professional, it's concise, it's reader friendly. If you have any volunteer or non-paid work experience that's relevant to the job you're applying for, include it. When you're listing under a position, bullets, we recommend that you kind of stay in the range of having no more than 3 to 6 bullets per position. We encourage applicants and candidates not to use pronouns on their resume, like I, me, my, our, their, they, us, his, and her. Um, just, kind of speak in, I guess, in the third person, where you're kind of just generally listing what your skills are and what you've done. One
Orlando,
tip that,
oh,
sure.
sorry, go ahead.
Okay. One tip, is to focus on, the outcome of your actions, meaning, what was the situation, what was the task, the action, the result. That way you can demonstrate what you've done. You know, include quantitative data. Numbers tell a story, and numbers make your resume interesting. And definitely use power verbs. And so, say, for example, if you managed the budget and you were able to reduce, or achieved a cost savings of 30%, tell them about that. Put that on your resume. You know, recruiters and hiring managers like to see those types of things. Lori, you had a question. I'm sorry.
Oh, just a point of clarification, just regarding the pronouns. You're referring to describing people's work, right? Like I did XYZ, because now, we have people who may identify as gender neutral, so may always include their pronouns up in their in their description of themselves, but that's not what you're talking about, right?
No, more so just in when you're listing your job experience. Say, for example, I work for Truist. In my current role, I could say in my bullet point, instead of it saying, I managed our external partnerships, I would simply say that managed external partnerships with 21 organizations. I'm taking the pronoun out of it, if that makes sense. It just it just makes it a bit more easier to read, and it just looks a little bit more professional. I mean, Erica, do you want to add anything there?
Oh, I agree.
I would say for those, again, for tomorrow, teeing up for tomorrow, that star, that situation, task, action, or result, that'll look very familiar tomorrow. Very familiar, very familiar. So, but we can show you how to kind of go through the specifics of that when it's conveying it in an interview, but it also can be a takeaway whenever you start, again, getting your resume to a bulleted point. And to what Orlando's saying, like if you're working on, hey, you were an apprentice for 3 years at Code the Dream. I worked on 6 projects that served and reached this many clients, for 10 clients, ultimately reaching, 1,000 users. You can put that in one like tight description, but that's ultimately, I think, when you get to that star, when you get to the behavior interviews and showing what that star was, you can talk numerically, but then you can build in a lot of that. What we'll talk about tomorrow is more soft skills and how in your approach. So, and make the numbers come to life, so to speak.
Okay. Definitely. And we have some examples when it comes to crafting your bullet points. So, here is where we've taken a couple of examples and we've gone from the very basic, as it states here, responsible for corporate events, But then we moved to the next level, coordinated corporate events and provided excellent customer service. And you keep building on that until you get to the point where you're saying, you know, you coordinated 60 plus corporate events, averaging 45,000 each by meeting project plan, adjusting to clients' needs, and exceeding expectations, resulting in, average of rating of 4.6 out of 5 and 65% client return rate. So when you look at, say, for example, the poor example to the excellent example, it shows how the excellent one gives more of a story and the numbers add more interest, and it demonstrates what your abilities and skills are. And the same with the example on the right-hand side where it says, you managed a budget, but the excellent, you managed a $350,000 budget and you strategically invested $150,000 of idle funds in appropriate high-yielding capital notes, returning 5% over the year. That tells a bit more than you simply managing a budget. So hopefully those are a couple of examples of showing how you're using those power verbs to explain what you've done. And it just makes it a bit more clean and concise without adding in, the pronouns and on your resume. Any questions? Anything you want to add, Erica?
Nope, you nailed it.
Okay. All right. Okay, great. So we're at a point now, and how are we doing on time? I know that we
are short on time. It is
okay.
4:53. I'm not sure what y'all's time is like. If you have a few extra minutes or not, I know I want to respect your time.
Sure. Well, we were hoping just to have them to kind of point out a few things, but this is, we can keep going because we definitely want to get to the LinkedIn portion as well. So some things just to keep in mind very quickly, within your resume, you want to try to avoid, politics, religion, avoid too much white space. You definitely don't want to fill the page up with a ton of text because you want to be mindful of those margins, but you don't want to have too much space on the page either. Definitely have your resume reviewed by someone else. You can I know I can look at a document 3, 4, 5 times and can easily miss typos, extra spaces, my punctuation is missing or in the wrong place, or I may have used the wrong punctuation. So having someone else to review your resume, I cannot emphasize enough how important that is. Again, if your resume is, try to keep it to 2 pages or less. If you do have a resume that's more than 1 page, be sure to make certain that your name and the page number is on the second page. The reason for that is because as Erica pointed out earlier, we could very easily be looking at 70 plus resumes for one job. As we are looking through a stack of documents, your resume, page 1 and 2, could easily be separated, and we're not certain which one goes with which. So that's a good way to help the recruiter and the hiring manager keep all of your information together. Make sure that whatever you're using, if it's a template, a software program, if you're asking someone else to help you, or even, there are some instances where someone else may actually create your resume for you. You want to make sure that everything on your resume is accurate. It accurately depicts what you have done, what you can do. We have seen instances where people have used other people's resumes as templates, and they may have even gone as far as not changing the name on the second page. So on the first page, it'll say this resume belongs to, Janice Smith, but on the second page, it'll say in the corner that it belongs to Peter Brown. And we're like, so who's applying for the job? So just those little things. make a difference. Again, you want to make sure your resume is reader friendly. It shows your impact and it doesn't read like a job description. Definitely use the keywords and comment language. And again, proofread your resume for errors. Have someone else to look at your resume too. All right. Erica, anything you would like to add before we move on to the next section?
No, nothing.
Okay. So LinkedIn, you know, if you haven't already created a profile, we definitely encourage you to go out and to do so. And LinkedIn is an awesome tool. I know as recruiters, we definitely use LinkedIn to try to find talent for a number of positions. And we not only look at individual profiles, but we also look for people within groups. We look at skills that people have listed within their profiles. We look at the endorsements or recommendations or things that other people have said about that person, within their profile. So, definitely if you have coworkers, friends that can speak to your skills and experience and abilities, ask them to endorse you, ask them to write a recommendation for you, and you can put that on your LinkedIn profile. You can follow, notable professionals and recruiters within your job function or your industry. You can follow, various companies, join groups of interest to you and build your network. Quite often, recruiters and employers may even post job opportunities within those groups that may not be shared anywhere else on LinkedIn. So definitely, we would encourage you to do that. Make sure that your profile has content is professional and is up to date. Post only positive comments because recruiters are looking to see what is your engagement with others on the platform. So if you have an issue or concern with someone, that is definitely not the place, I would say, to express that. Also too, we would encourage you, if you're applying for a job at an organization and you do not know someone there, I typically encourage people to say, hey, look, find a recruiter through LinkedIn that works for that company. And if you have submitted an application, reach out to them, introduce yourself to them, send them an email and just say, hey, my name is so-and-so. I have recently applied for an opportunity at your company. Would you mind connecting me with the appropriate recruiting contact? And people do that to me all the time. And I am happy to let the appropriate recruiter know that this person reached out to me through LinkedIn. They've expressed an interest in the opening. And it's, so I would definitely recommend that. And if you have content that you would like to share, whether it's, appropriate articles, and or say, for example, you recently took a certification course and you successfully completed that and you earned a badge for something, share it. Share that on your profile. Recruiters, we look at that information as well. Erica, anything that you'd like to share?
No.
Okay. All right. And here are just some, quick facts, about LinkedIn. 35% of casual conversations through LinkedIn that have led to an opportunity. 70% had a connection at the company where they were hired, and 85% of jobs filled were as a result of networking. So LinkedIn truly is a great tool. So I would encourage you to use it. And just very quickly, here are some photos that we kind of pulled. And are there any photos that stand out that you probably would not post to your LinkedIn profile?
Probably A, right?
Okay, I heard A. Any others? Okay, so definitely, I'm in agreement with you. I would not suggest posting A unless you happen to be working for the solo company and it's a promotion for their cups. But otherwise, no. Um, you want to make sure that whatever content, LinkedIn, while it is a social media platform, it is focused on professional networking and connection. So you want to make sure that whatever information you're sharing on your profile and whatever story you're telling through the photos you are sharing, it is presenting a professional image, and it reflects your professional brand. Um, just some social media reminders. Be mindful of what you post to public sites because, as we all know, once it's out there forever. Um, Look at your photos that you're sharing publicly and make sure that there isn't anything there that you wouldn't want to share with everyone. Clean up any rants. I say the easiest way to clean them up is not to have any, um, and not to put them out there. But we're all human. Google yourself to see what information appears. You'd be surprised sometimes what is connected to your name when you do that. Make sure that your personal accounts are locked, um, and post as if everyone is reading it, including your boss. So that's something to definitely keep in mind. And that comes to the end of our presentation. So I think we're just 3 minutes over. So thank you all so much for your patience and your questions along the way. Are there any other questions that you all have at this time?
I just want to acknowledge, I know we did not get to the individual resume review. We can hopefully find volunteers that are willing to review resumes, or maybe even try to reschedule something else another time. So I really appreciate all of those of you who sent those to me in advance. I'm sorry we didn't get those, but this was just such great information.
And just to let you know, the resumes that were sent, we actually reviewed those. So we have feedback. So if you have time sometime this week and want to speak to us directly, we can set up some time, do a WebEx, through Truist. We can connect all together, maybe like 30 minutes, just to give you an overview of what we've already critiqued. That way it helps you to update your resumes and start your career journey.
Wow, I think that would be fantastic if you all have the time. That's great. Thank you. Thank you for that offer.
Yeah, I'll just say, y'all, again, be your biggest advocate. Be your biggest advocate. Do not be shy. Do not be bashful. I believe it or not, I've seen your work through about 3 years, and every time, and Lori and Daisy can attest to this. Every single quarter, I'm getting projects sent my way just to say, look at what the apprentices are doing, or look what the students are doing. I know you're all at different phases of your life. Whether I went to school, I'm an immigrant, I have a different background. I mean, I'll just say your work speaks for itself. It's just a matter of trying to tell your story that to other people, and it's not easy. Like I can tell you, I've seen some of the code, and I have no idea what it means, but you all do, and I'm inspired by that. I'm not just saying that as a fly on the wall. Like, it is hard, but I think as you work through your resume, as you work through preparing for a job, you've got it. You've got the skills. It's just a matter of getting that foot in the door, of course. But it's also saying we're concise. We know what we're doing. This is what I'm going to do for you. Bring me on board. So I would just say I'm inspired by your all's work, truly.
And let me also, that's great. And let me also add that your LinkedIn is your live resume. So that's where you really want to be bragging. If you can show any of your skills on LinkedIn, put it out there because we want to see those pictures. We want to see the articles that you've written, anything that you've been a part of. But also, honestly, that's where we go to look to find you. That resume is great, but we instantly go to LinkedIn. We want to see, are you networking with others? Are you liking posts? Are you communicating with others? Because when we, in particular, here at Truist, when we're hiring you, again, we're not just hiring you for that skill, but we're hiring you from a holistic approach. So we want to see what other skills you have, and also how you engage with others, because again, part of our MPV is one team. So brag about yourself on LinkedIn. Get out there and put that stuff out there. Ask people to endorse you. Because LinkedIn, and we can also download your resume from LinkedIn as well, which is a lot of times we do. But when you least expect it, trust me, somebody from a recruiter or hiring manager has found you on LinkedIn and is approaching you. So you want to create that LinkedIn profile, keep it updated, and use that as your bragging point to talk about yourself, because we're looking at all of your skills that you present on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I don't want to hold you all any longer, but thank you so much. This has been just really, really great information. And I hope that our teacuppers, as we call our group of job seekers, can continue the conversations and continue to ask questions in our Teacup Slack channel, because this has been really great information. And yeah, if you all want to coordinate, if you do have another 30 minutes or so in which you'd be willing to share resume feedback, I'm sure everybody would love to get that. So this has been great.
Most definitely. Callan, you can just let us know.
Yeah.
And we can coordinate with you. And we will also, Eric and I will check to see if it's possible for us to share this deck. If not, then perhaps we can create, again, like we had mentioned, maybe a little reference guide that could help you all and share it.
Thank you
And
all
I
so
challenge
much.
you all to connect with us on LinkedIn. So let's see how many people
Yeah.
look for us on LinkedIn and
There's the
connect with us.
challenge.
So we'll give you feedback about your LinkedIn as well.
Great.
There's a challenge.
Erica and Orlando and Kaylin too, you are all, of course, helping to create the future of a more diverse tech industry. And we really appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you all.
See you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right. Don't forget,
All right.
tomorrow, same time, same place.
All right.
Thank you, guys.